The sound of her body hitting the marble floor echoed through the empty mansion. But that wasn't what Raymond Weston would remember. It wasn't the crash. It wasn't the gasp as his pregnant daughter's airway closed under her husband's hands. It was the silence. The terrible, endless silence that followed. Charlotte Aldridge was 7 months pregnant when her CEO husband wrapped his fingers around her throat and squeezed until the world went black. He thought no one was watching. He thought his money and power made him untouchable. He thought wrong, because somewhere in that house, a camera was recording everything, and the footage was already on its way to the one man Preston Aldridge should have feared most, her billionaire father. What happens when a powerful man discovers his daughter's perfect marriage is a prison? When the charming CEO everyone admires is exposed as a monster? When a pregnant woman must choose between the life she built and the life growing inside her? This is not just a story about betrayal. This is a story about survival, about a woman who lost herself in a marriage that was slowly killing her, about a father who would burn the world to protect his child, about the moment when the victim becomes the victor. But here's what makes this story different. Charlotte wasn't Preston's first victim. She wasn't his second. And the secrets buried in his past are darker than anyone imagined. Stay with me until the end, because the twist at minute 20 will change everything you think you know. And the final confrontation, you won't see it coming. This is the story of Charlotte Weston, and it begins with a camera that should never have been there, recording a crime that was never supposed to be seen. The sound was what Raymond Weston would never forget. Not the crash of his daughter's body against the marble floor, not the gasp as her airway closed, but the silence, the terrible, endless silence that followed. He sat in his home office at 11:47 on a Tuesday night. The quarterly reports glowed on his computer screen. Numbers that meant nothing now. Numbers that would never mean anything again. Marcus Webb stood in the doorway, his head of security for 15 years. A man who had seen combat, a man who rarely showed emotion. Marcus was pale. His hands trembled as he held the tablet. "Sir, you need to see this." Raymond looked up. "Can it wait until morning?" "No, sir, it cannot." Marcus crossed the room, set the tablet on the desk. "Della sent it. It's Charlotte." Charlotte, his daughter, his only child, the reason he had built everything, the reason he still breathed. Raymond took the tablet, pressed play. The image was grainy at first. A living room he recognized. His daughter's home. The home she shared with her husband of 4 years. Charlotte stood near the fireplace, 7 months pregnant. Her hand rested on her belly. She was saying something. Her lips moved, but there was no audio for the first few seconds. Then the sound kicked in. "I just asked where you were." Charlotte's voice. Tired, careful. The voice of someone walking on eggshells. Preston Aldridge III stepped into frame. Tall, handsome, the kind of man who commanded boardrooms, the kind of man Raymond had trusted with his daughter. "You were checking up on me." Preston's voice was cold, controlled. Again. "I was worried. You said you'd be home by 7. It's almost midnight. So now I need permission to work late?" "That's not what I said." Preston moved closer. Something shifted in his posture. Raymond leaned forward. His heart began to pound. "You're always questioning me, always suspicious, always making me feel like a criminal in my own home." "Preston, I'm just tired. The baby's been kicking all day. I wanted to have dinner together." "There you go again, making me feel guilty, making everything about you." Charlotte took a step back. Her hand moved protectively over her belly. "I'm going to bed. We can talk in the morning when you've calmed down." She turned to leave. Preston grabbed her arm, spun her around. His hand closed around her throat. Raymond stopped breathing. On the screen, Charlotte's eyes went wide. Her mouth opened. No sound came out. Her hands clawed at Preston's grip. "You don't walk away from me." Preston's voice was a whisper now, intimate, terrifying. "You don't ever walk away from me." Charlotte's face changed color, red to purple. Her legs buckled. Preston held her up by her throat, like she weighed nothing, like she was nothing. Then he let go. Charlotte crumpled to the marble floor. Her head struck the edge of the coffee table. She lay still. Preston stood over her, adjusted his cuffs, walked to the bar cart and poured himself 2 fingers of scotch. He drank it slowly, looking at his unconscious, pregnant wife on the floor. Then he pulled out his phone. "Yes, I need an ambulance. My wife fainted. She's pregnant. Please hurry." His voice was perfect, concerned, loving, exactly what a worried husband should sound like. Raymond watched him hang up, watched him kneel beside Charlotte, watched him arrange her body, move her away from the coffee table, stage the scene. The video ended. Raymond sat motionless. His coffee cup had fallen from his hand at some point. Brown liquid spread across the carpet. He did not notice. "When?" His voice sounded strange to his own ears, like it belonged to someone else. "Tonight, about 2 hours ago. Della had the Nanny cam installed 3 weeks ago. She configured it to send footage directly to her phone." "Where is Charlotte now?" "St. Margaret's Hospital. Preston told them she fainted. Pregnancy complications." Raymond closed his eyes. 17 times. He would watch that footage 17 times before morning. Each viewing, something inside him calcified into diamond-hard purpose. His daughter, his Charlotte, the little girl who used to fall asleep in his arms, the young woman who had danced at her wedding, the mother-to-be who had called him last week to tell him about the nursery colors. Her husband had choked her unconscious while she carried his grandchild. Raymond opened his eyes, picked up his phone, dialed. "Bennett, I need you here now." "Raymond, it's midnight. My daughter's in a hospital bed because her husband choked her unconscious while she carries my grandchild. I don't care if it's the apocalypse. Get me what I need." Silence on the line. Then, "I'm on my way." Raymond ended the call, looked at Marcus. "I want everything, every asset Preston Aldridge controls, every secret he's hiding, every woman he's hurt before my daughter." Marcus nodded. "I'll have a team on it by morning." "Not by morning, now." Raymond stood, walked to the window. The city glittered below. Millions of lights, millions of lives. None of them mattered right now. Only Charlotte, only the baby, only justice. Charlotte woke to the sound of machines beeping. Steady, rhythmic, annoying. The sound of hospitals. The sound of something being wrong. Her eyes opened slowly. White ceiling, fluorescent lights, the smell of antiseptic and artificial flowers. Her hand moved instinctively to her belly. A kick, strong and immediate. Relief flooded through her like warm water. The baby was okay. The baby was alive. Then the pain hit. Her throat, raw and burning, like she had swallowed broken glass. She tried to swallow. A nurse appeared, 50s, kind face, name tag read Gloria. "Mrs. Aldridge, you're awake. How are you feeling?" Charlotte tried to speak. The words came out as a whisper. Sandpaper on sandpaper. "What happened?" "You were brought in about 3 hours ago. Your husband said you fainted. Hit your head on the way down." Gloria checked the monitors, made notes. "The baby is fine. Strong heartbeat. No signs of distress." Charlotte's hand went to her throat, touched the tender skin, felt the swelling. Gloria's eyes flickered to Charlotte's neck, then away. Professional, careful, seeing but not saying. "Your husband is in the waiting room. Do you want me to get him?" "No." The words screamed in Charlotte's mind, but her mouth said nothing. Fragments of memory surfaced. Preston's face, his hand around her throat, the pressure, the darkness closing in, the cold floor rushing up to meet her. "I fainted." That's what he told them. I fainted. But she hadn't fainted. She knew that now. The memories were coming back in pieces, sharp and jagged like broken glass. He had choked her, his hands around her throat, squeezing until she couldn't breathe, squeezing until the world went black. "Mrs. Aldridge?" Gloria's voice was gentle. "Should I get your husband?" Charlotte nodded, not because she wanted to see him, because she needed to understand. Gloria left. Charlotte lay still, her hand on her belly, feeling her daughter move. "I'm sorry," the thought was automatic. "I'm sorry I put you in danger. I'm sorry I didn't leave sooner. I'm sorry I didn't see." But she had seen. That was the truth she couldn't escape. She had seen the signs, the temper, the control, the way he made her feel small. She had explained it away every time. She had made excuses, accepted apologies, believed promises. 4 years of believing, 4 years of shrinking, 4 years of pretending that love was supposed to feel like fear. The door opened. Preston walked in, flowers in his hand, expensive ones. The kind he always brought when he had something to apologize for. His face was arranged in concern. Loving worry, devoted husband. Charlotte looked at him, really looked. And for the first time, she saw the mask. Darling. He sat on the edge of the bed, took her hand. His grip was firm, just a little too tight. You scared me. What happened? Her voice was a rasp. You fainted. The doctor says it's the pregnancy. You've been overdoing it. He squeezed her hand. I caught you, but not fast enough. You hit the coffee table. Charlotte stared at him, watched his mouth move, heard the lies pour out like honey. I fell, that's what he wants me to believe. I fell, but her neck told a different story. The bruises forming under her skin, the swelling that made it hard to swallow, the handprints she could feel even if she couldn't see them. We need to go home, Preston said. Rest, no visitors. The doctor says stress is bad for the baby. No visitors. The words echoed in her mind. No visitors meant no witnesses. No visitors meant no one would see the truth. I'm tired, Charlotte whispered. I need to sleep. Preston smiled, that charming smile that had won her heart 5 years ago, that smile she now recognized as a weapon. Of course, darling. I'll be right outside. He kissed her forehead. His lips lingered, possessive, warning. Then he left. Charlotte lay in the hospital bed, machines beeping, baby kicking, truth settling like lead in her stomach. She pretended to sleep when he came back to check on her, counted his breaths, listened for the lie in his voice when he answered his phone. Yes, she's resting. Just a fainting spell. Nothing serious. Nothing serious. She had almost died. Her baby had almost died. And he called it nothing serious. Charlotte kept her eyes closed, kept her breathing steady, kept pretending. It was what she had been doing for 4 years. But something was different now. Now she knew the truth. Now she had to find a way out. Raymond did not sleep that night. He sat in his study as the hours crawled past, watching the footage, again and again, memorizing every frame, every second. Bennett Cross arrived at 1:15 in the morning. Gray suit, sharp eyes, the best corporate lawyer money could buy. Marcus had assembled a team by 2 former FBI, private investigators, people who knew how to find secrets and how to keep them. By 4 in the morning, they had a preliminary report. Charlotte isn't the first. Marcus laid the files on Raymond's desk. 3 other women, all before your daughter. Raymond opened the first file. A woman named Jessica Trent, Preston's first wife. She died in a car accident. Single vehicle. Ran off a cliff in Big Sur. Marcus pointed to the accident report. Except the injuries don't match. The car went off a cliff, but her injuries suggest blunt force trauma to the head before the crash. Raymond's jaw tightened. He killed her. We can't prove it, but the evidence suggests it wasn't an accident. Second file, a young woman named Brooke Kavanaugh, Preston's college girlfriend. Fell downstairs at a party. Multiple witnesses, except 3 of those witnesses received significant payments from the Aldrich family in the following months. And Brooke received a settlement of $800,000 to keep quiet. Raymond looked at the photo, young, beautiful, scared eyes. She couldn't have been more than 20. Third file, a woman named Diane Maxwell, Preston's former executive assistant. Resigned suddenly 2 years ago, relocated to Oregon, changed her phone number. When our investigator contacted her, she refused to speak, started crying and hung up. Raymond closed the files, sat in silence for a long moment. His daughter had married a monster, a serial abuser, a man who had left a trail of broken women behind him, and Raymond had given his blessing. He had walked Charlotte down the aisle, shaken Preston's hand, welcomed him into the family. The guilt was a physical weight, pressing on his chest, making it hard to breathe. But guilt was useless now. Only action mattered. I want protective orders in place by morning. I want Charlotte out of that hospital before Preston can move her. and I want enough evidence to bury him." Bennett nodded. "The footage is damning, but we need more. Need the pattern. We need the other women to talk." "Then make them talk, whatever it takes, whatever it touched us." Raymond stood, walked to the window. Dawn was breaking over the city, pink and gold and full of false promise. "My daughter is in a hospital bed because I didn't see what he was. I won't make that mistake again." Charlotte woke to sunlight streaming through hospital windows. For a moment, she didn't remember. For a moment, she was just a woman in a hospital bed. Pregnant, confused, normal. Then it all came back. Preston's hands, the pressure, the darkness. She touched her throat. The swelling had gotten worse overnight. She could feel the bruises forming, purple fingerprints on her skin. The door opened. Not Preston this time. Not a nurse, her father. Raymond Weston stood in the doorway, gray suit, silver hair, eyes that had seen empires rise and fall, eyes that were now filled with something Charlotte had never seen before. Rage, barely contained, volcanic. "Daddy!" The word escaped before she could stop it. She hadn't called him that in 15 years. Not since she was a teenager. Not since she became an adult. But she wasn't an adult right now. She was a little girl who needed her father to make the monsters go away. Raymond crossed the room, sat on the edge of her bed, took her hand. "I know," he said quietly. "I saw." Charlotte's breath caught. "Saw what?" "Della put a camera in your living room. She sent me the footage last night." The world stopped. Charlotte stared at her father, tried to process what he was saying. Della, her father's housekeeper, the woman who had watched Charlotte grow up, the woman who had always seemed worried when Charlotte visited, who always looked at her too long, who always asked if everything was okay. Della had known. Della had suspected. Della had done something about it. "I'm taking you home," Raymond said. "Not to his house. Home." "I can't." The words were automatic, the response of 4 years of conditioning. "He'll be furious. He won't do anything, not ever again." Charlotte shook her head, fear rising, the fear that had become as familiar as breathing. "You don't understand. He has lawyers. His family has connections. He'll make it look like I'm crazy, like I'm lying, like—" "Charlotte," Raymond's voice cut through her panic. "I have a video of him choking you unconscious. I have evidence of 3 other women he's hurt. I have more money and more power than the Aldridge family has ever dreamed of. He cannot touch you. He will never touch you again." Charlotte looked at her father, saw the certainty in his eyes, saw the love that had never wavered, and something inside her broke. Not broke like shattering, broke like dawn, like the first light after an endless night. She started to cry. Raymond held her, let her sob into his shoulder, didn't tell her it would be okay, didn't make promises he couldn't keep. Just held her, like he had when she was a child, like he would for the rest of his life. Preston arrived at 10:15 to find Charlotte's room empty. The bed was made. The monitors were silent. His wife was gone. He grabbed the first nurse he saw. His fingers dug into her arm. "Where is my wife?" The nurse tried to pull away. Fear flickered across her face. "Mr. Weston checked her out against medical advice about an hour ago." Preston's grip tightened. His mask slipped. Just for a second. Long enough for the nurse to see something in his eyes that made her step back. Then the mask returned. Concerned husband. Worried about his pregnant wife. "Thank you," he said smoothly. Released her arm, walked away. In the parking garage, he called Raymond. The older man answered on the first ring. "Bring my wife back." Preston's voice was cold, controlled. "Now." "She's not your wife anymore." Raymond's voice was colder. "She's just the mother of your child. And after what you did, you'll be lucky if you see that child from behind glass." "You have no idea what you're starting, old man." "Wrong. I know exactly what I'm starting. I've been ending men like you since before you learned to tie a Windsor knot." The line went dead. Preston stood in the parking garage, phone in hand, mind racing. This was not how it was supposed to go. Charlotte was supposed to be grateful, supposed to apologize, supposed to come home and pretend nothing had happened. That was how it always worked. That was how it had worked for 4 years. But Raymond had changed the game. Raymond had seen the video. Raymond had the evidence. Preston felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Fear. Not fear of Raymond, not fear of consequences, fear of losing control. Charlotte was his. He had shaped her, molded her, made her what she was, and he would not let her go. Charlotte stood at the window of her childhood bedroom. Everything was the same, the pale blue walls, the white curtains, the view of the garden where she had played as a girl. Everything was different. She was different. Her hand rested on her belly. The baby kicked, strong and insistent, demanding acknowledgement. "I know you're there," Charlotte whispered. "I know you're counting on me." On the dresser, a photo from her wedding day. Charlotte in white lace, Preston in a tailored suit. Both smiling, both lying. She had been so happy that day, so certain, so blind. Looking at that photo now was like looking at a stranger, a woman who believed in fairy tales, a woman who thought love was supposed to hurt. That woman felt like 1,000,000 years ago. Charlotte picked up the photo, studied her own face, the hope in her eyes, the joy in her smile. It had all been real, every emotion, every dream, but it had been built on lies. Preston had never loved her. Not really. He had loved the idea of her, the billionaire's daughter, the trophy wife, the woman he could control, and she had let him. That was the hardest truth, harder than the violence, harder than the lies. She had let him make her small, day by day, word by word, touch by touch. She had apologized for having opinions, stopped seeing friends who asked too many questions, started believing she was the problem. He never loved me. The thought was clear and cold. He loved the power he had over me. Charlotte set the photo face down, turned back to the window. Her mother's roses were blooming in the garden below, pink and white and yellow, still beautiful after all these years. Her mother had planted those roses the year before she died. Charlotte was 15. Cancer had taken her quickly, too quickly. "What would you think of me now, Mom?" Charlotte wondered. "What would you say about the woman I became?" But she knew. Deep down, she knew. Her mother would say the same thing. Charlotte was finally starting to understand. "You survived. That matters. Now start living." 3 days passed. Charlotte stayed in her childhood home, ate meals Della prepared, slept in her old bed, tried to remember who she had been before Preston. Raymond assembled his team, lawyers and investigators and security specialists, all working toward one goal, destroying Preston Aldridge III. On the 4th day, Marcus presented his full report. "We've confirmed the pattern." He laid files on the conference table. "Preston Aldridge is a serial abuser. At least 3 victims before Charlotte, possibly more." Charlotte sat at the table, her father on one side, Bennett Cross on the other. Marcus at the head. She had insisted on being present, on knowing everything, on facing the truth. Jessica Trent, Preston's first wife. Marcus opened the first file. Married in 2012, died in 2014. Official cause of death was a car accident. Charlotte looked at the photo, a beautiful woman, blonde hair, green eyes, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She looked haunted, even in what should have been a happy photo. "The accident report doesn't match the evidence," Marcus continued. "She died from blunt force trauma to the head, but the car's airbags deployed. The impact should have been survivable." "He killed her," Charlotte whispered. "He killed her and made it look like an accident. We can't prove it, not in court, but yes, that's the conclusion our investigators reached." Marcus moved to the second file. Brooke Kavanaugh, Preston's college girlfriend. They dated for 2 years at Stanford. Charlotte studied the photo, young, barely 20, innocent eyes. In 2008, Brooke fell down a staircase at a fraternity party. Multiple witnesses. She suffered a concussion and a broken arm. Marcus paused. But 3 of those witnesses received significant payments from the Aldridge family in the following months. And Brooke received $800,000 in an undisclosed settlement. Where is she now? Changed her name, moved to Vermont, married, 2 kids. Marcus looked at Charlotte. She agreed to speak with our investigator. She confirmed that Preston pushed her down those stairs. that it wasn't the first time he'd hurt her, that the Aldridge family paid her to keep quiet. Charlotte's hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against the table. 3 women, 3 victims, and she had married him anyway. Why didn't anyone warn me? Her voice cracked. Why didn't they come forward? Fear, Marcus said simply. Shame, the power of the Aldridge family, the same reasons most abuse victims stay silent. Bennett leaned forward. We have enough to file criminal charges, assault, witness intimidation, possibly accessory to murder, though that would be harder to prove. Raymond spoke for the first time. What about custody? Charlotte's baby? That's where it gets complicated. Bennett opened his legal pad. Preston will fight for custody. He'll use his family's resources to paint Charlotte as unstable, hormonal, delusional. Charlotte's blood ran cold. He'll try to take my baby. He'll try. He won't succeed. Raymond's voice was iron. We have the video. We have the pattern. We have the truth. The truth doesn't always win in family court, Bennett cautioned, especially against a family with the Aldridge connections. Charlotte stood, walked to the window, looked out at the garden without seeing it. 4 years. 4 years of marriage. 4 years of abuse. And now it came down to this, a fight for her child, a fight for her life, a fight against a man who had never lost anything in his life. She had told herself she was special, that she understood Preston like no one else did, that she could change him, that their love was different. That was what they all told themselves. Jessica, Brooke, Diane, all of them had believed the same lies. Charlotte turned back to the room. What do we do? Bennett laid out the strategy: protective orders, criminal charges, civil suits, a full court press against Preston and his family. But Charlotte barely listened. Her mind was elsewhere. She was thinking about her wedding album, still in the house she shared with Preston, still full of photos of the happiest day of her life. All those smiles, all that hope, all of it built on lies. That night, Charlotte couldn't sleep. She lay in her childhood bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the silence. The baby kicked, restless, sensing her mother's distress. I'm sorry, Charlotte whispered. I'm sorry I didn't see sooner. I'm sorry I put us in danger. But apologies were useless now. Only action mattered. She got out of bed, 3:15 in the morning. The house was dark and quiet. Charlotte walked to her closet, opened the doors. Her clothes from before, from high school and college. Clothes her mother had chosen for her. Clothes that reminded her of who she used to be. She started pulling things out, sorting, organizing. 2 piles. Who she was, who she became. The who she became pile was larger. Designer dresses Preston had bought her. Conservative colors he preferred. Modest cuts he approved of. Every piece of clothing was a reminder of how she had changed, how she had molded herself to fit his expectations, how she had erased herself to please him. Charlotte worked through the night. By dawn, the 2 piles were complete. She donated the who she became pile, every piece, every reminder. Then she showered, dressed in clothes from the who she was pile, a soft blue sweater, comfortable jeans, simple, authentic, hers. When Della brought her breakfast, the older woman paused in the doorway. You look like yourself, Della said softly. For the first time in years, you look like Charlotte. Charlotte smiled, a real smile, small and tentative, but real. I'm starting to remember who that is. Preston's response came on the 7th day, 3 in the morning. Motion sensors triggered at the Weston estate. Alarms screaming. Marcus and his team intercepted 2 men near Charlotte's window. Professional, armed, silent. They wouldn't say who had hired them, but everyone knew. Raymond stood over them in the security room. His face was calm. His eyes were not. You were going to take my pregnant daughter in the middle of the night from her own home. One of the men smirked. Can't prove who hired us. I don't need to prove it in court. I just need to prove it to myself. Raymond leaned close. Tell Preston his intimidation games ended tonight. The next team he sends won't go home. The police took them away. Charges filed, bail denied, but the message had been sent. Preston wasn't going to let Charlotte go quietly. He was going to fight with everything he had. Charlotte made a decision the next morning. I'm done hiding. She sat across from her father at breakfast. Her voice was steady. Her hands were not. I'm done protecting his reputation at the expense of my safety. Raymond set down his coffee. What do you want to do? I want to file charges. Real charges. I want to tell the truth to anyone who will listen. I want him to face what he's done. That means going public. That means your name in the headlines, your face on the news. I know. Charlotte touched her belly. But I'm going to have a daughter. And I want her to grow up knowing that her mother fought back, that her mother didn't let a monster win. Raymond studied her face, saw something he hadn't seen in years. Fire. Then we fight. Detective Patricia Holloway arrived at noon, 48 years old, 20 years in law enforcement, specialized in domestic violence cases, known for being relentless. She sat across from Charlotte in the study, recorder running, notepad open. I've been waiting for someone to come forward against Preston Aldridge. Holloway's voice was matter of fact. I have 3 other women who were too scared. Maybe now they'll talk. Charlotte told her story from the beginning. The wedding night when Preston had grabbed her arm hard enough to bruise. The escalation over 4 years. The night he had choked her unconscious. She didn't cry. She had done enough crying. Now was the time for truth. Holloway showed her photos of the other victims, Jessica, Brooke, Diane. Do you recognize any of these women? Charlotte shook her head. I never met them. Preston never talked about them. He wouldn't. Men like him compartmentalize. Each woman is separate. Each relationship is a fresh start. Holloway paused. Until the pattern repeats. The interview lasted 3 hours. When it was over, Charlotte felt empty, hollowed out, like she had poured everything she had onto that recording, but also lighter, like a weight had been lifted. The truth was finally out. Whatever happened next, she had spoken. Dr. Hannah Reeves called that afternoon. Charlotte's obstetrician for the past 7 months, a woman who had seen her through every checkup, every ultrasound, every concern, a woman who had noticed the bruises Charlotte always explained away. Your blood pressure is concerning. Dr. Reeves' voice was gentle but firm. The stress is affecting the baby. You need to rest. You need to be calm. Charlotte laughed. The sound was hollow. Calm. My husband tried to kill me. His family is trying to silence me. And I'm supposed to be calm. Silence on the line. Then Dr. Reeves spoke again. Charlotte, I should have said something sooner. The bruises, the way you flinched when I touched your arm, the way you always wore scarves in the summer. Charlotte closed her eyes, remembered all those appointments, all those lies she had told. I fell. I bumped into the door. I'm so clumsy. The excuses came automatically, like breathing, like lying. You knew, Charlotte said quietly. You suspected. I should have reported it. I should have pushed harder. Dr. Reeves' voice cracked. I failed you. I won't fail you again. What do you mean? I've documented everything. Every appointment. Every injury I noted. Every concern I recorded. A pause. If this goes to court, I'll testify. I'll tell them what I saw. Charlotte's throat tightened. You would do that? You're my patient. You're a survivor. And you're not alone. 2 days later, the tabloid story broke. Billionaire's daughter makes wild accusations against CEO husband. Charlotte read it on her phone. Every word, every insinuation, gold digging, hormonal, crazy. The source was clearly from the Aldridge camp. The quotes were too perfect, the spin too obvious. Comments flooded in, people she had never met judging her life. She just wants his money. Pregnancy hormones make women crazy. Why didn't she leave sooner if it was so bad? Charlotte scrolled, read, absorbed. Each comment was a knife, a different kind of violence. But something strange happened as she read. The comments stopped hurting, not because they weren't cruel, they were, but because she knew the truth. She knew what had happened. She knew what Preston had done. Their opinions didn't change reality. Their judgments didn't make the video disappear. Charlotte closed her phone, set it aside. I know what happened. I know what he did. Their opinions don't change the truth. Her anger was a clean thing now, purified, focused. Let them judge. Let them doubt. Let them believe whatever they wanted. She knew the truth, and the truth would set her free. The phone call came on a Tuesday afternoon. Charlotte was in the garden, sitting among her mother's roses, feeling the baby move. Della appeared at the gate. "There's a call for you. Someone named Sloane Aldridge." Charlotte froze. Sloane, Preston's younger sister, the woman who had been at family dinners, who had sent baby gifts, who had always seemed uncomfortable around her brother. "She says she'll only speak to you," Della added. "She says it's important." Charlotte took the call in the study, alone, against everyone's advice. "I know you have no reason to trust me." Sloane's voice was thin, stretched, like a wire about to snap. "But I have something you need." "What could you possibly have that I would want?" Silence, then. "Records. From when Preston was 17, what he did to his girlfriend in prep school, what our parents paid to make disappear." Charlotte's breath caught. "Why would you give me this?" A long pause. When Sloane spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. "Because I was in that house too. I know what he is. I've always known." Another pause. "And I'm tired of protecting him." The records arrived by courier the next morning. Sealed envelope, handwritten note from Sloane. "This is everything. I'm sorry I didn't speak sooner." Charlotte opened the envelope with shaking hands. Preston Aldridge III, age 17, senior at Wellington Academy, assault and battery of a fellow student. Miranda Chen, 16 years old. The details were clinical. Medical reports, police statements, settlement documents. But the reality behind the words was horrifying. Preston had beaten his high school girlfriend. Badly. She had spent 3 days in the hospital. The Aldridge family had paid $800,000. The police report had been sealed. Miranda had transferred schools, changed her name, disappeared. That was 17 years ago. Before Jessica, before Brooke, before Diane, before Charlotte. The pattern started even earlier than they thought. Charlotte set down the documents, stared at the wall. Her husband had been hurting women since he was a teenager. For 17 years, his family had covered it up. For 17 years, new victims had walked into his life unprepared, and she had been one of them. Marcus appeared in the doorway. "We tracked down Miranda. She lives in Colorado now. Different name, married with kids." "Did she talk?" "Not at first. She was scared. Still after all these years." Marcus paused. "But when we told her about you, she agreed to give a statement." Charlotte nodded. She couldn't speak. Miranda's statement arrived that evening. A video call, a woman in her mid-30s. Careful eyes, nervous hands. "He told me no one would believe me, that his family was too powerful, that I was nobody." Miranda's voice shook. "He was right. No one believed me. Until now." Charlotte watched the recording 3 times, saw her own experience reflected in Miranda's eyes. The charm, the control, the escalation, the violence. It was always the same. Every woman, every time. And Preston had learned that he could get away with it, that money and power could make the truth disappear. Until now. The emergency custody filing landed like a bomb. Preston's lawyers argued that Charlotte was mentally unstable, a danger to her unborn child, suffering from pregnancy-induced delusions. They wanted a court-appointed guardian. They wanted to take her baby. Bennett Cross read the filing aloud, his voice tight with anger. Charlotte sat motionless, ice forming in her veins. "They're using my pregnancy against me, claiming my accusations are hormonal fantasies." "It's a standard play," Bennett said. "Attack the credibility of the accuser. Make the victim look crazy." "Can they win?" Bennett hesitated. That was an answer enough. Raymond spoke. His voice was calm, controlled, deadly. "Over my dead body, and before my dead body, over his." He turned to Marcus. "I want everything we have compiled, every victim, every document, every piece of evidence. We're going to bury this custody motion so deep it never sees daylight." Charlotte stood, walked to the window, looked out at the garden where she had played as a child. She had thought filing charges was the hard part. She had thought speaking the truth was enough. But Preston wasn't going to give up. He wasn't going to admit defeat. He was going to fight until he had taken everything from her. including her daughter. Charlotte's hand went to her belly. The baby kicked, strong and insistent. "I won't let him take you," she whispered. "I won't let him win." Dora. Reeves was subpoenaed 3 days later. Preston's lawyers expected her to confirm Charlotte's instability, to testify about the stress of pregnancy, to support their narrative of a delusional wife. They miscalculated. But Reeves walked into the judge's chambers with 4 years of documentation. Every bruise she had noted, every injury she had questioned, every time Charlotte had worn long sleeves in summer. "I should have reported it sooner." Reeves' voice was steady, professional, damning. "I failed my patient. I won't fail her again." The judge read the documentation, looked at the photos, studied the timeline. When he spoke, his voice was ice. "I'm denying the emergency custody motion, and I'm ordering us a full investigation into Mr. Aldridge's conduct." Charlotte was in the garden when Bennett called with the news. She sat down on a bench, let the tears come. Relief and exhaustion in something that felt almost like hope. One battle won, many more to come. But for the first time, she believed she might survive. Preston came for her on a Thursday. 6 weeks since the night he choked her. 6 weeks of legal battles and media attention and sleepless nights. Charlotte was resting in her room. Late afternoon, golden light through the curtains. She heard the door open, expected Della with tea. But the figure in the doorway was taller, darker, wrong. Preston stood in the shadows, watching her, the way he used to watch her at home, the way predators watch prey. "Hello, Charlie." Charlotte's blood turned to ice. Her hand moved toward her phone. Preston was faster. He caught her wrist. His grip was familiar. Bruising. "Don't." His voice was conversational, calm, the most dangerous version of him. "We're just talking, like we used to. Remember how we used to talk?" Charlotte's heart pounded, her throat closed. He was here, in her father's house, in her sanctuary. No place was safe. No one could protect her. "How did you get in?" Preston smiled. "I still have friends. I still have power. Did you think a few security guards could keep me out?" He sat on the edge of her bed, still holding her wrist, still controlling the situation. "You've been very busy, Charlie, filing charges, talking to the police, turning my own sister against me." He clicked his tongue. "That wasn't very wifely of you. I'm not your mom anymore. We're still married, darling, until a judge says otherwise." His grip tightened, and judges can be persuaded. Charlotte tried to pull free, failed. "What do you want?" Preston leaned closer, his face inches from hers, his breath warm on her skin. "I want you to come home. Drop the charges. Tell everyone you were confused, hormones, stress, whatever excuse you want." He paused. "We'll go to therapy. I'll be better." "You'll be better." Charlotte almost laughed. "You've been saying that for 4 years." "I mean it this time." "You meant it every time. And then you did it again." Preston's eyes flickered. Something dark moved behind them, the mask slipping. "This is your last chance," Charlotte drawled. "Come home willingly, or I take what's mine anyway." Charlotte stared at him, saw the man she had loved, the man she had married, the man who had tried to kill her. "I'm not yours," she said quietly. "I never was." The door crashed open. Marcus and 2 security guards, weapons drawn. Preston released her wrist, stood slowly, adjusted his jacket. "This conversation isn't over," he said softly. "Only for her." Then he allowed himself to be escorted out. But the look he gave Charlotte as he left, that look of possession, of ownership, of rage, that look stayed with her long after he was gone. Charlotte broke that night, alone in her room, the baby kicking, the darkness pressing in. All the strength she had been showing, all the determination, all the brave words, it drained away, like water through sand. She was just a woman who had loved the wrong man, who had believed the wrong promises, who was about to give birth to his child, and he could still reach her, still get to her, still make her feel small. Charlotte cried until she couldn't breathe. Then she cried more. She thought about the woman she had been before Preston, the confident young professional, the daughter who made her father proud, That woman was gone, erased, replaced by someone she didn't recognize. What if I can't do this? What if I'm too broken? What if he wins? The spiral went darker, darker than she had ever let herself go. She thought about her mother, dead 15 years. Cancer had taken her too quickly. She thought about her baby, due in 8 weeks, a little girl who deserved better than this. She thought about giving up, just for a second, just the thought. Then her phone buzzed, a crisis hotline number. Saved months ago, never called. Charlotte stared at it. Her thumb hovered over the delete button. 3 times she almost erased it. The 4th time she called, the voice on the line was calm, unhurried, present. Thank you for calling. How can I help you tonight? Charlotte couldn't speak at first. The words stuck in her throat. I don't know why I called. I don't know what I need. That's okay. You don't need to know. You just need to talk. So Charlotte talked about Preston, about the abuse, about the fear that never went away, about the moment in the hospital when she woke up and remembered his hands around her throat, about the feeling of being watched, hunted, owned, about the voice in her head that told her she deserved it. The counselor listened, didn't interrupt, didn't offer platitudes. When Charlotte finished, silence stretched between them. Then the counselor spoke. You're not broken, you're injured. There's a difference. Charlotte closed her eyes, let the words sink in. Injuries heal. Bones knit back together, wounds close. It takes time. It takes care. But it happens. I don't know who I am anymore. He took everything, every piece of me. No, he took what you showed him. He took the surface, but you're still here, still fighting, still calling crisis lines at 2 in the morning because something inside you refuses to give up. Charlotte's throat tightened. Fresh tears spilled. Who do you want to be? The counselor asked. About who he made you, not who you were before. Who do you want to become? Charlotte thought about it, really thought. Who did she want to be? A survivor, a mother, a woman who spoke her truth, a woman who was afraid but fought anyway, a woman who would teach her daughter that strength wasn't about never falling. It was about getting back up. I want to be someone my daughter is proud of, Charlotte said finally. I want to be someone I'm proud of. Then that's who you'll become. Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually. The call lasted 2 hours. When it ended, Charlotte sat in silence. The darkness was still there. The fear was still there. But something else was there too. A spark, small and fragile, but real. She looked in the bathroom mirror, really looked. The fading bruises on her neck, the shadows under her eyes, the way her shoulders curled inward. She deliberately straightened, lifted her chin, held her own gaze. I am not his creation. I am not his victim. I am Charlotte Weston, and I will survive this. The words were quiet, just for her, but they were true, and truth was the first step toward freedom. Megan Carr came to the house on a rainy Wednesday. Charlotte expected to hate her. The other woman, the affair partner. The reason Preston had stayed late at the office. But the woman who stood in the foyer was nothing like Charlotte expected. 26 years old, trembling, a fading bruise under too much makeup. Charlotte knew that bruise, knew what it meant. I know you have no reason to trust me. Megan's voice shook. I know I'm the last person you want to see. What do you want? To apologize. To explain. Megan took a shaky breath. To tell you that you are not alone. Charlotte studied her, saw the fear in her eyes, the shame in her posture, the same broken pieces Charlotte saw in her own reflection. Come in. They sat in the garden, among Charlotte's mother's roses, 2 women connected by the same monster. He told me you were crazy, cold, that the marriage was over. Megan stared at her hands. He said you didn't understand him, that you made him feel trapped, that with me, he could be himself. Charlotte laughed. The sound was bitter. Let me guess, for a while it was perfect. He was charming, attentive, made you feel special. Megan nodded. I thought I was different. I thought he actually loved me. We all thought that. Charlotte's voice softened. That's how it works. Then he started changing, getting angry, telling me I was too needy, too demanding, that I was suffocating him. Megan's voice cracked. The first time he hit me, I told myself it was an accident. He was stressed. Work was hard. It wouldn't happen again. But it did. Again and again, each time worse. Megan touched the bruise on her cheek. I tried to leave 3 times. He said he'd destroy my career, tell everyone I was a homewrecker, make sure I never worked again. Charlotte reached out, took Megan's hand. What changed? Megan looked up. Her eyes were wet. I saw the news coverage. I saw you fighting back. I saw a woman who had been through what I was going through, and she didn't give up. She paused. I thought, if she can do it, maybe I can too. Charlotte's throat tightened. She had spent weeks feeling alone, isolated, like no one understood. But she wasn't alone. There were others, women like Megan, women like Jessica and Brooke and Miranda, all of them connected by the same man, the same violence, the same lies. Will you testify? Megan nodded, tears streaming. I'll tell them everything. Bennett Cross called a meeting that afternoon. The conference room was full. Lawyers and investigators and witnesses. Everything they had built over the past 6 weeks, every piece of evidence, every statement. We now have, Bennett began, the nanny cam footage showing the assault, medical records from 4 hospitals documenting a pattern of abuse, testimony from 5 victims spanning 17 years, Dr. Reeves' documentation of injuries over 4 years, Sloan Aldridge's family records showing cover-ups since Preston was a teenager, and Megan Carr's statement about the ongoing affair and abuse. He set down his pen, looked around the room. We're not just getting Charlotte a divorce. We're putting Preston Aldridge in prison. Raymond nodded, satisfaction in his eyes. But Charlotte spoke first. I want him to face what he's done. I want the truth to come out. But I want my daughter more than I want revenge. The room went quiet. What do you mean? Bennett asked. A trial means my daughter growing up with news clips of her father's violence. It means reliving every moment in public. It means making our pain into entertainment. Charlotte paused. If Preston pleads guilty, if he admits what he is, if he surrenders custody completely, he can avoid the trial. Raymond leaned forward. Charlotte, I know you want to destroy him. I understand. Part of me wants that too. She looked at her father. But I've already lost 4 years of my life to that man. I won't lose more. And I won't let my daughter's childhood be defined by his crimes. Silence stretched through the room. Then Bennett nodded slowly. We can make the offer, but I don't think he'll take it. Then we go to trial, but we do it my way, with dignity, without becoming what he is. Raymond studied his daughter, saw something he hadn't seen in years, not just survival, wisdom. Your way, he agreed. Whatever you need. The offer was delivered to Preston's lawyers the next morning. Guilty plea to assault in the first degree, 3 years minimum, permanent restraining order, full custody to Charlotte, no visitation until the child was 18 and chose contact. Preston's response came that evening. He was fighting. He would rather risk prison than give up control. Charlotte wasn't surprised. That was who he was. Control mattered more than anything, more than freedom, more than his daughter. Then we go to trial, she said quietly. But she wasn't angry anymore. Not the hot, burning anger of the early days. This was different. Cold, clear, certain. He had made his choice. Now he would face the consequences. Charlotte spent the next 2 weeks preparing, but not just for the trial, for everything after. She chose a name for her daughter, Hope Eleanor Weston. Hope for the future. Eleanor for her mother. She painted the nursery herself. Soft yellow walls, white curtains, a rocking chair by the window. She had dinner with friends she hadn't seen in years. Women who had called and called until Preston convinced her they were toxic. Women who welcomed her back without judgment. She laughed, really laughed, for the first time in years. Small acts of reclamation. One day at a time. She was building a life, her own life, without Preston's shadow hanging over it. Dr. Reeves visited for a checkup, noted the improved blood pressure, the color in Charlotte's cheeks, the light in her eyes. You look different, the doctor said. Stronger. Charlotte smiled. For 4 years, I made myself smaller every day. Now I'm taking up space again. I forgot how good that feels. The trial began on a Tuesday in October. The courtroom was packed, media overflow, 3 networks live streaming. Charlotte wore a simple gray dress, no jewelry, no armor of wealth, just herself. Preston sat at the defense table. Tailored suit, perfect hair, the mask firmly in place. But Charlotte could see the cracks now, the tension in his jaw, the anger in his eyes. He was losing control, and he couldn't stand it. The prosecution opened with the video. The courtroom gasped. One juror covered her mouth, another looked away. Charlotte didn't look away. She had watched it enough times now. It didn't have power over her anymore. The defense tried every tactic. Charlotte was unstable, manipulative, a gold digger who wanted her wealthy father's attention. Dr. Reeves destroyed that narrative. 4 years of documentation, injuries that matched abuse, not accidents. The video was manipulated, edited, taken out of context. An expert witness verified the authenticity, frame by frame, second by second. Preston was under extraordinary stress. His wife was difficult. She provoked him. 3 victims testified. 5 if you counted the video statements from Jessica's sister and Brooke's therapist. The pattern was undeniable. The same story, different women, spanning 17 years. On the 3rd day of testimony, Preston lost control. The prosecutor was questioning him about Megan Carr, about the affair, about the bruises Megan had documented. She was obsessed with me. She wouldn't leave me alone. I had to. He stopped himself, but it was too late. The prosecutor smiled. You had to what, Mr. Aldridge? Preston's mask slipped, just for a moment, but a moment was enough. She was mine, my wife, my child. She doesn't get to just leave. The words hung in the air. Every juror heard them. Every reporter recorded them. No further questions, Your Honor. Charlotte took the stand on the 4th day. When did you first realize something was wrong? She paused, remembered. The night after our wedding. He didn't like how I laughed at another man's joke at the reception. When we got to our hotel room, he grabbed my arm hard enough to bruise. She touched her arm unconsciously. Then he apologized, bought me breakfast in bed. I told myself it was nerves. New marriage jitters. And it escalated? Slowly. So slowly I didn't see it happening, like boiling a frog. He turned up the heat so gradually by the time I realized I was burning, I thought I deserved it. Why didn't you leave? Charlotte looked at the jury, at the faces watching her, judging her. Because he convinced me no one else would want me. That my father's money was the only reason anyone tolerated me. That without him, I was nothing. She paused. He was wrong, I know that now. But when you hear something every day for 4 years, you start to believe it. What would you like people to understand about your experience? Charlotte thought about all the comments she had read, all the questions she had been asked, all the judgments she had faced. I want people to know that leaving is hard, harder than anyone who hasn't done it can understand. Staying is harder, but the shame isn't ours. It was never ours. It's his. It was always his. She looked at Preston, held his gaze. I'm not broken. I'm not crazy. I'm not a gold digger or a liar or any of the things you've called me. I'm a survivor, and I'm done being silent. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Charlotte waited in a witness room, her father beside her, Della in the corner, the people who loved her closest. Her phone buzzed. Text from Megan. Whatever happens, you change things. You made it possible for others to speak. Charlotte typed back, we changed things together. At 4:17 in the afternoon, the verdict came. Guilty on all counts. Assault in the first degree, criminal stalking, witness intimidation. 15 years, eligible for parole in 8. Preston stood motionless as the sentence was read. His face blank, his eyes dead. He turned to look at Charlotte in the gallery. His gaze held no remorse, only rage, only the frustrated fury of a man who couldn't control what was his. Charlotte met his gaze, didn't flinch, didn't look away. She mouthed 2 words. I'm free. The first contraction hit at 4:17 in the morning. Charlotte woke from a dreamless sleep. Her hand went to her belly. The tightening sensation spread across her abdomen like a wave. She lay still, counted the seconds, waited. 20 minutes later, another one came. This is it, she thought. This is really happening. She reached for her phone, called Della first. It's time, she said simply. Della was at her door in 3 minutes, still in her robe, hair wrapped in a scarf, eyes wide with excitement and worry. How far apart? 20 minutes, maybe 15. We have time. Let me call your father. Raymond arrived within the hour. He had clearly dressed in the dark. His shirt was buttoned wrong. His shoes didn't match. Charlotte laughed when she saw him, the first laugh of what would become the most important day of her life. Daddy, your shoes. Raymond looked down. One brown loafer, one black Oxford. I'm not changing them, he said firmly. This baby is coming whether my shoes match or not. The drive to the hospital was surreal. Dawn was breaking over the city, pink and gold light spilling across the skyline. The world waking up to an ordinary Tuesday. But for Charlotte, nothing was ordinary. Every contraction brought her closer to meeting her daughter. Every wave of pain was a step toward the future she had fought so hard to reach. Marcus drove, steady and calm, eyes scanning the mirrors out of habit. Raymond sat beside Charlotte in the back, holding her hand, not speaking, just present. Della followed in a second car, bringing the hospital bag Charlotte had packed 3 weeks ago. The tiny onesies and soft blankets and the stuffed elephant she had bought on impulse. At the hospital, they were expected. Dr. Reeves had called ahead. Private room, maximum security, no visitors without clearance. Preston was in prison, had been for 3 weeks. But old habits died hard. Charlotte would never stop checking over her shoulder, never stop making sure the doors were locked, never stop protecting herself and her daughter. But she was learning to live anyway. Labor was not what Charlotte expected. She had read the books, taken the class, watched the videos. Nothing prepared her for the reality. The pain was immense, overwhelming, like her body was being torn apart and rebuilt simultaneously. But there was something else too, something beneath the pain. Power. Her body knew what to do, had known for 9 months, was doing it now without her conscious direction. She was not passive in this process. She was not a victim of her own biology. She was a force of nature. You're doing beautifully, Dr. Reeves said during one of the checks. 7 centimeters, almost there. Charlotte nodded, couldn't speak. Another contraction was building. Raymond had retreated to the waiting room after the first hour. He had tried to stay, wanted to be supportive. But watching his daughter in pain was more than he could bear. Della stayed, held Charlotte's hand, wiped her forehead with cool cloths, murmured encouragement in a steady stream. You are strong. You are capable. You are almost there. The words became a rhythm, a heartbeat, a lifeline. At 2:37 in the afternoon, Dr. Reeves said the words Charlotte had been waiting for. It's time to push. Charlotte bore down, every muscle in her body focused on this one task, this one moment, this one goal. Push, breathe, push. Again, the world narrowed to sensation, pressure, pain, purpose. She thought about the journey that had brought her here. The night Preston had choked her, the hospital room where she had woken up, the moment she had decided to fight. Every step had led to this. Every battle had been for this. Push, breathe, almost there. I can see the head, Dr. Reeves said. One more, give me one more big push. Charlotte gathered everything she had, every ounce of strength, every drop of determination. She pushed, and then at 3:47 in the afternoon, Hope Eleanor Weston entered the world. The sound of her daughter's first cry was the most beautiful thing Charlotte had ever heard. Not a wail, not a scream, a declaration. I am here. I am alive. I matter. Dr. Reeves placed the baby on Charlotte's chest, warm and wet and perfect. Hello, sweet girl, Charlotte whispered. I'm your mama. Hope opened her eyes, dark blue, like all newborns. But Charlotte saw something there. Recognition, trust, love. I've been waiting for you, Charlotte continued. My whole life, I've been waiting for you, and you were worth every second. Hope's tiny hand curled around Charlotte's finger, a grip that was surprisingly strong. This is what I fought for, Charlotte thought. This moment, this miracle, this life. The tears came then, unstoppable, overwhelming. Not tears of sadness, not tears of fear, tears of pure crystalline joy. She had survived, she had endured. She had brought this beautiful child into the world, and nothing would ever be the same. Raymond came in an hour later. He stood at the door for a long moment, just looking, taking in the scene. His daughter in the hospital bed, his granddaughter in her arms, 2 generations of his heart in one room. Can I? His voice was hoarse, uncertain. Charlotte smiled. Of course, Daddy. Come meet your granddaughter. Raymond crossed the room slowly, like he was approaching something sacred, something holy. He leaned down to look at Hope, studied her tiny face, her button nose, her perfect little ears. She looks like your mother, he said, tears streaming down his face. She has Eleanor's chin. Charlotte felt her own tears return. Her mother had died 15 years ago, but in this moment she felt closer than ever. I named her Hope Eleanor, Charlotte said. Hope for the future. Eleanor for Mom. Raymond nodded, couldn't speak. He reached out one finger, touched Hope's cheek, the gentlest touch imaginable. Hello, Hope Eleanor Weston, he whispered. I'm your grandpa, and I'm going to spoil you absolutely rotten. Hope yawned, stretched her tiny arms, settled deeper into her mother's embrace. Raymond laughed through his tears. She's already unimpressed with me. She definitely has your mother's attitude. Charlotte laughed too. The sound was free, unburdened, joyful. Would you like to hold her? Raymond's eyes widened. Can I? I don't want to. I haven't held a baby since you were born. It's like riding a bicycle. You never forget. Charlotte transferred Hope into her father's arms, watched him adjust his grip, support her head, cradle her against his chest. Raymond looked down at his granddaughter, and in that moment, Charlotte saw something shift in him. The hardness that had carried him through the trial, the rage that had fueled his quest for justice, the determination that had protected his daughter. It all melted away. In its place was something softer, something gentler, something new, love, pure and unconditional and infinite. I will never let anything hurt you, Raymond whispered to Hope. I will never let anyone make you feel small. You are precious. You are loved. You are safe. Charlotte closed her eyes, let the moment wash over her. This was her family, imperfect and broken and healing, but hers, and it was enough. The first night was the hardest. Hope woke every 2 hours, hungry, wet, confused by this strange new world outside the womb. Charlotte fed her, changed her, rocked her back to sleep, then did it all again. By morning she was exhausted. Her body ached from delivery. Her mind was foggy from lack of sleep. But when she looked at Hope sleeping peacefully in the hospital bassinet, none of it mattered. This is what mothers do, she thought. This is what love looks like. Sacrifice and exhaustion and joy are all tangled together. Della arrived with coffee and muffins, took one look at Charlotte and shook her head. You need rest. Let me take her for a few hours. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're running on fumes and you need to heal. Della's voice was gentle but firm. Let me help. That's why I'm here. Charlotte hesitated. The instinct to hold Hope close was overwhelming, to never let her out of sight, to protect her from every danger. But Della was right. Charlotte couldn't do this alone, and she didn't have to. 2 hours, she said finally. Wake me if she needs me. Of course. Charlotte closed her eyes. Sleep claimed her instantly. When she woke, Hope was still sleeping peacefully. Della was reading in the corner chair. Sunlight streamed through the windows. Everything was calm. Everything was safe. This is what peace feels like, Charlotte thought. I had forgotten. They left the hospital 3 days later. Charlotte's new house was waiting, the house she had chosen for its light, its windows, its garden. She had bought it 2 months ago, spent weeks decorating, making it perfect. The nursery was ready, soft yellow walls, white curtains, a rocking chair by the window. When Charlotte carried Hope through the front door for the first time, she paused. "Welcome home, baby girl," she whispered. "This is where we live now. This is where we're safe." Hope blinked at her surroundings, yawned, closed her eyes, not impressed by the decor. But Charlotte didn't mind. She had the rest of their lives to show Hope the beauty in the world. The first month was a blur, feeding, changing, sleeping in fragments, learning Hope's cries, understanding her needs. Charlotte had help. Della moved into the guest room, handled the cooking and cleaning and everything else that fell through the cracks. Raymond visited daily, held Hope for hours, sang to her in an off-key voice that made Charlotte smile. Marcus and his team maintained security, discreet but present, just in case. Preston was in prison, would be for years. But the fear lingered. Charlotte checked the locks 3 times before bed, kept her phone charged and close, made sure someone always knew where she was. The trauma didn't disappear just because the trial was over. It lived in her bones, her reflexes, her nightmares. But she was learning to live with it, to acknowledge it without letting it control her. Therapy helped. Dr. Morrison, a trauma specialist recommended by the hospital. Weekly sessions that peeled back layers of pain. "You're making progress," Dr. Morrison said after a month. "Real progress." "It doesn't feel like progress. I still have panic attacks, still wake up sweating." Progress isn't linear. It's not about eliminating the symptoms. It's about developing tools to manage them. Dr. Morrison leaned forward. "And you are managing. Every day you get up, every day you care for your daughter, every day you choose to keep going. That's progress." Charlotte thought about that, about the woman she had been a year ago, trapped, afraid, invisible. That woman wouldn't recognize the one she had become. "I guess I am doing okay," she admitted. "You're doing more than okay. You're thriving." Hope's first smile came at 6 weeks. Charlotte was changing her diaper, making silly faces, talking nonsense the way new mothers do. And then it happened. Hope's face lit up, her mouth curved, her eyes crinkled. A smile, real and genuine and directed at her mother. Charlotte froze, stared, made sure she wasn't imagining it. Hope smiled again, bigger this time. Charlotte laughed, picked her daughter up, held her close. "You smiled at me, your first real smile. Oh, baby girl, you have no idea how long I've waited to see that." Hope cooed, grabbed a fistful of Charlotte's hair, smiled a third time. Charlotte called everyone she knew, Raymond, Della, Dr. Reeves, even Marcus, who responded with a gruff, "Good for her," that Charlotte knew was his version of excitement. This is what it means to be a mother, she thought. Finding joy in the smallest moments, celebrating every milestone, building a life one smile at a time. The months passed in a rhythm of their own. 3 months. Hope started sleeping through the night. Charlotte felt human again. 4 months. Hope rolled over for the first time, from back to belly, then belly to back, then back to belly again, just to show off. 5 months. Solid foods. The mess was spectacular. The photos were priceless. 6 months. Sitting up unassisted, looking around at the world with curious eyes, reaching for everything within range. Charlotte documented every moment. Photos and videos and journal entries, building a record of Hope's first year, building a record of their survival. She wanted Hope to know someday, not the details of the abuse, not the horror of the trial, but the strength it took to get here, the courage it required to start over. She wanted Hope to understand that she came from resilience, from determination, from love. The call from the Congressional Committee came on a Tuesday. Charlotte was feeding Hope lunch. Sweet potato puree. Most of it ended up on Hope's face, but some made it into her mouth. "Mrs. Weston, this is Senator Mitchell's office. We'd like to invite you to testify before the Judiciary Committee about domestic violence legislation." Charlotte set down the baby spoon. "Testify? Your story has inspired a national conversation. We're drafting comprehensive reform legislation, and we believe your testimony could help it pass." Charlotte thought about what that would mean, going public again, sharing her story with the world, reliving the worst moments of her life. She thought about Hope. What kind of example did she want to set? "Yes," she said, "I'll do it. The preparation took 3 weeks, working with Raymond's communications team, drafting testimony, practicing delivery, anticipating questions. Charlotte had never spoken publicly about her experience. The trial had been closed to cameras. The media coverage had used stock photos. This would be different. This would be deliberate. This would be her choice. "Are you sure about this?" Raymond asked the night before. "You don't have to prove anything to anyone." "I'm not proving anything. I'm using what happened to me to help others." "That's different." "It's still painful." "Yes, but pain can have purpose. That's what I've learned." Raymond studied his daughter, saw the woman she had become. "Your mother would be proud of you," he said quietly. "I hope you know that." Charlotte felt tears prick her eyes. "I know, Daddy, I know." The hearing room was packed. Senators at the dais, staff filling the seats behind them, media cameras along the walls, public gallery overflowing. Charlotte sat at the witness table, microphone in front of her, water glass to the side, notes she had memorized but brought anyway. Hope was with Della, safe and happy and blissfully unaware that her mother was about to address the nation. "Ms. Weston, please proceed with your opening statement." Charlotte took a breath, looked out at the assembled faces, the people who would decide whether her story mattered. "My name is Charlotte Weston. I am a survivor of domestic violence. I am a mother, and I am here to tell you that this is not a women's issue. This is not a private matter. This is a crisis that affects millions of Americans, and it requires a comprehensive response." She told her story, from the beginning. The first warning signs she had dismissed, the escalation she had explained away, the night she had almost died. "I was lucky," she said. "I had resources. I had a father who could protect me. I had lawyers and security and options that most victims don't have. And I still almost didn't make it out." She paused. Let that sink in. What about the women who don't have those resources? What about the mothers who can't afford lawyers? The sisters who don't have safe places to go? The daughters who have been told that no one will believe them? Charlotte leaned forward. They deserve better. We all deserve better. And that starts with you, with the laws you write, the funding you allocate, the message you send that domestic violence will not be tolerated in this country. She looked directly into the camera. To anyone watching who sees themselves in my story, who is trapped in a relationship that hurts, who is afraid to leave, you are not alone. You are not crazy. You are not worthless. And there are people who will help you. She paused, including me. The testimony lasted 4 hours. Questions from senators, statistics from experts, stories from other survivors who had found the courage to speak. By the end, Charlotte was exhausted, emotionally drained, but also strangely peaceful. She had done what she could, said what needed to be said. The rest was up to them. Raymond was waiting in the hallway. He didn't say anything, just hugged her. "I'm proud of you," he whispered. Charlotte held on tight. "Let's go home. I want to see my daughter." The legislation passed 3 months later. Hope's Law, they called it. Comprehensive domestic violence reform. Funding for shelters, training for law enforcement, protections for survivors. Charlotte watched the vote on television. Hope in her lap, Della beside her on the couch. When the final tally was announced, Charlotte cried. Not for herself, not for the recognition, for all the women who would be helped. All the lives that would be saved. All the children who would grow up in safer homes. Her pain had become purpose. Her survival had become service. And that was the greatest victory of all. 1 year after the trial, Charlotte sat in her garden. The roses were blooming, pink and white and yellow and red. A riot of color in the morning sun. Some were her mother's roses, transplanted from the Weston estate, survivors like Charlotte herself. Others were new, varieties Charlotte had chosen herself, colors that spoke to her, shapes that made her smile. Her mother's legacy and her own future, growing side by side. Hope was walking now, 11 months old and determined to explore every inch of her world. She toddled across the grass with the focused concentration of a mountaineer. "Careful, baby girl," Charlotte called. "Watch the—" Hope fell, landed on her bottom in the soft grass, looked surprised for a moment, then laughed, got up, tried again. Charlotte smiled. That was her daughter, fearless, resilient, unstoppable. The letter from prison arrived on a Thursday. Charlotte recognized the handwriting immediately, the precise strokes, the elegant curves, the penmanship of a man who had been raised to believe his words mattered more than anyone else's. She didn't open it. This was the seventh letter Preston had sent, the seventh attempt to insert himself back into her life, the seventh refusal to accept that she was no longer his. Charlotte carried the letter to the fireplace, considered burning it. The paper would curl and blacken. The words would turn to ash. The physical evidence of his existence would disappear. But that would give it too much power, too much ceremony, too much of her team and energy. Instead, she opened the drawer of her desk, the drawer where she kept all his letters. Unopened, unanswered, irrelevant. She filed this one with the others, closed the drawer, walked away. He didn't get to have a voice in her life anymore. His words didn't matter. His opinions didn't count. His existence was simply a fact she had to work around, like bad weather or traffic. She wrote her own story now, and he wasn't in it. Hope's first birthday party was small, just the people who mattered. Raymond, Della, Marcus, a few friends Charlotte had reconnected with over the past year, and Megan Carr, the woman who had once been Charlotte's rival, was now her friend. Trauma had a way of creating bonds that nothing else could. They understood each other in ways no one else could. Megan arrived with a gift wrapped in yellow paper, a soft teddy bear, simple and sweet. "I hope this is okay," she said, suddenly uncertain. "I didn't know what to bring." Charlotte hugged her. "It's perfect. You're perfect. I'm so glad you're here." They set up in the garden, streamers and balloons and a cake that Hope would mostly destroy rather than eat. Raymond wore a party hat. He looked ridiculous. He didn't care. "Gamma!" Hope shouted when she saw him. Her version of Grandpa. Close enough. Raymond scooped her up, spun her around, laughed when she grabbed his nose. "Happy birthday, beautiful girl," he said. "You have no idea how special you are." Charlotte watched them together, her father and her daughter, the two people she loved most in the world. She thought about the path that had brought her here, the pain and the fear and the endless nights of doubt. Would she change it if she could? Go back and make different choices? No, because every step had led to this, to hope, to healing, to peace. The journey had been brutal, but the destination was worth it. The cake was a disaster in the best possible way. Hope grabbed fistfuls of frosting, smeared it across her face, shoved it in her hair. Charlotte took approximately 700 photos, each one more precious than the last. "She's definitely your daughter," Raymond observed. "You used to do the same thing." "I did not. I have photographic evidence." "You were covered in chocolate cake for your entire first birthday." Charlotte laughed. "Okay, maybe I did, but I turned out fine." "More than fine." Raymond's voice softened. "You turned out extraordinary." Charlotte felt tears threaten, happy tears, the kind she was still getting used to. "Thank you, Daddy, for everything, for believing me, for fighting with me, for never giving up." That's what fathers do. We protect our children, no matter what. Charlotte thought about that, about the protection she would provide for Hope, the lessons she would teach, the example she would set. Her daughter would never know what it was like to be small, to be silenced, to be told she didn't matter. Charlotte would make sure of it. After the party, after the guests had left, Charlotte sat in Hope's room. The baby was asleep, exhausted from her big day, cake still in her hair despite Charlotte's best efforts. The room was quiet, peaceful. Exactly what Charlotte had imagined when she was pregnant and terrified. She had wondered then if she could do this, if she could be a good mother, if her own brokenness would infect her daughter. Now she knew the answer. She wasn't broken, she was healing. And healing wasn't a destination, it was a practice, something she did every day, every hour, every moment. Some days were harder than others. Some nights the nightmare still came. Some moments the fear still gripped her. But she kept going, kept trying, kept showing up. That was what strength looked like. Not the absence of pain, the persistence through it. Charlotte leaned down, kissed Hope's forehead. "I love you, baby girl," she whispered. "More than you will ever know. And I will spend the rest of my life making sure you believe it." Hope stirred, smiled in her sleep. dreaming whatever dreams one-year-olds dream. Charlotte watched her for a long moment, memorizing this peace, this perfection, this gift. Then she quietly left the room, closing the door behind her, stepping into the rest of her life. Megan's wedding invitation arrived in the spring. Charlotte opened it with genuine awe. Her friend had found happiness, had healed, had built a new life from the ashes of the old. They were all building new lives. All the women Preston had hurt, all the survivors who had found their voices. Charlotte called Megan immediately. "I got the invitation. I'm so happy for you." "You'll come? You'll really come?" "Wild horses couldn't keep me away." They talked for an hour about the wedding, about the future, about how far they had both come. "Do you ever think about him?" Megan asked quietly. "About Preston?" Charlotte considered the question. "Sometimes, not the way I used to, not with fear or anger, more like acknowledgement. He existed, he hurt me, and now he doesn't matter." "That's incredible. I don't know if I'll ever get there." "You will. It takes time and therapy and a lot of grace for yourself." Charlotte paused. "But you'll get there. I know you will." The wedding was beautiful. A small church in Vermont, white flowers everywhere, Megan radiant in a simple lace gown. Charlotte sat in the third row, Hope on her lap, watching her friend walk toward her future. David, the groom, was crying before Megan even reached the altar. Good tears, happy tears, the tears of a man who knew exactly how lucky he was. Charlotte thought about her own wedding, the dress she had loved, the vows she had believed, the hope she had felt. All of it had been real. Her feelings had been genuine. She had truly loved Preston. But love wasn't enough, not when the other person was broken in ways that couldn't be fixed. Not when charm hid cruelty and promises masked control. She had learned that the hard way, but she had also learned something else, something better. Love could heal. Love could rebuild. Love could create something beautiful from the ruins of something terrible. That was what Megan had found, what Charlotte had found with Hope. That was what made the pain worth it. After the wedding, Megan found Charlotte in the garden. "Thank you," Megan said, "for being here, for being my friend, for showing me this was possible. You showed yourself. I just opened the door." "We opened it together," Charlotte smiled. "That's how it works. We lift each other up. We carry each other through. None of us survives alone." Megan hugged her, tight and long and full of meaning. "I love you, Charlotte. You know that, right?" "I know. I love you too." They stood together in the garden. Two survivors, two friends, two women who had found their way out of the darkness and into the light. Hope learned to talk in the months that followed, not just single words, full sentences, observations about her world. "Mama bird," pointing at the window. "Gamma funny," laughing at Raymond's jokes. "More please," reaching for her favorite snacks. Charlotte documented every new phrase, every milestone, every step in her daughter's journey. "This is what I fought for," she thought again and again. "This life, this joy, this future." The simple moments, breakfast together, walks in the park, bedtime stories, the complex moments, tantrums and teething, and the endless negotiations of toddlerhood. All of it precious, all of it worth every sacrifice. Charlotte started writing in the fall, not the legal documents and testimony she had become accustomed to, something different, something personal. A book, her story, the truth about what happened and how she survived. "Who is this for?" Dr. Morrison asked in one of their sessions. "For anyone who needs it, for women trapped in situations like mine, for people who don't understand what domestic violence really looks like." "And for yourself?" Charlotte thought about that. "Yes, for myself too. To make sense of it all, to transform the pain into something meaningful." Writing was harder than she expected. Reliving the memories, finding the right words, being honest about her own mistakes, but it was also cathartic. Each chapter she completed was another piece of the past she could release. She wasn't writing for revenge or recognition. She was writing for healing, hers and others. Raymond read the draft on Christmas Eve. Charlotte had given it to him nervously, her truth laid bare on 300 pages. He disappeared into his study, didn't emerge for 4 hours. When he came out, his eyes were red. "I didn't know," he said quietly. "I didn't know how bad it was, how much you were hiding. I didn't want you to worry. I thought I could handle it." "You shouldn't have had to handle it alone." Charlotte crossed to him, took his hands. "I wasn't alone, not really. I had Della watching over me. I had you, even when I pushed you away. I had people who loved me, even when I couldn't let them in." "This book," Raymond said, "it's going to help people. You know that, right?" "I hope so." "It will, because it's honest, because it shows the reality, the confusion and the shame and the gradual erosion of self." He squeezed her hands. "You're going to save lives with this." Charlotte hoped he was right. Hope's second birthday arrived faster than seemed possible. 2 years old, running and talking and asserting her independence with fierce determination. "I do it myself" became her favorite phrase, applied to everything from putting on shoes to climbing stairs to feeding the cat. Charlotte let her try, let her fail, let her try again. That was how strength was built, through struggle and persistence and the knowledge that falling down wasn't the end. Hope would fall many times in her life. Charlotte couldn't prevent that. But she could teach her daughter to get back up, to keep going, to never give up on herself. That was the greatest gift she could give. The book was published in the spring. Invisible Bruises, A Survivor's Story by Charlotte Weston. Charlotte held the first copy in her hands, felt the weight of it, the reality of it, her words, her truth, available for the world to see. The response was overwhelming. Letters and emails and social media messages. Women who saw themselves in her story, men who finally understood what their sisters and mothers and daughters had experienced. Invitations to speak, interviews and podcasts and television appearances. Charlotte said yes to some, no to others, balanced visibility with privacy, advocacy with motherhood. She was no longer hiding, but she was also no longer obligated to share every piece of herself. Boundaries. Another thing she had learned the hard way. The most meaningful response came from a stranger, a woman named Sarah, a letter handwritten on notebook paper. "Dear Mrs. Weston, I read your book in 2 days. I couldn't put it down because you were telling my story. Everything you described, the charm and the control, the apologies and the escalation, the feeling of being crazy because he kept telling me I was. I've been with my husband for 12 years, 2 kids, a nice house, a life that looks perfect from the outside. But inside, I'm dying, slowly, day by day, just like you described. Your book made me realize something. I'm not crazy. He's not going to change, and I don't have to stay. I don't know what happens next. I'm scared. I have no money of my own. My family thinks he's wonderful. But I called a hotline last night. They're helping me make a plan. I wanted you to know. Your story gave me courage. Your survival showed me it was possible. Thank you, Sarah." Charlotte read the letter 3 times, crying harder each time. This was why she had written the book. This moment, this woman, this life being saved. She wrote back immediately. "Dear Sarah, you are not alone. You are not crazy. And you are braver than you know. The road ahead will be hard. There will be days when you want to give up. Days when going back seems easier than going forward. But it isn't. I promise you it isn't. Forward is hard. Yeah. But forward is life. Forward is freedom. Forward is everything you deserve. I'm here if you need me. Not just as an author, as a survivor, as someone who understands. You can do this. I know you can." With love and solidarity, Charlotte, the summers passed in a haze of sunshine and laughter. Hope grew taller, smarter, more herself with each passing day. She had Charlotte's determination and Raymond's stubbornness, a combination that made parenting both challenging and wonderful. Wait-eyeing became her second favorite word, applied to everything. Why is the sky blue? Why do birds fly? Why can't I have ice cream for dinner? Charlotte answered every question, even when she didn't know the answer, especially then. "I don't know, baby girl. Let's find out together." Curiosity was precious. Wonder was sacred. Charlotte would nurture both as long as she lived. Raymond grew older, slower, more content. He had stepped back from the company, let younger executives take the reins. Spent his days in the garden or with his granddaughter. I spent 60 years building empires, he told Charlotte one afternoon. But this, watching Hope grow, being here for you, this is what matters. No regrets? One, I wish your mother could see this, see who you've become, see the family we've built. Charlotte took his hand. She knows, Daddy. Wherever she is, she knows. Hope started preschool in the fall of her 3rd year. Charlotte cried when she dropped her off, stood at the window watching her daughter navigate this new world. Hope didn't cry. She marched in confidently, found the art supplies, started creating. That was her daughter. Fearless and creative, and absolutely certain she belonged. Charlotte had given her that certainty, had built it into her foundation, had made sure Hope never questioned her own worth. The greatest gift, the most important legacy. 5 years after the trial, Charlotte received an unexpected visitor, Sloane Aldridge, Preston's sister, the woman who had provided the evidence that sealed his fate. Charlotte hadn't seen her since the trial, hadn't known how to reach out. The connection between them was complicated. Sloane looked different, lighter, like a weight had been lifted. I wanted to apologize, she said, for not speaking up sooner, for protecting him for so long. You protected yourself. There's no shame in that. I protected the family name, the reputation, the money. Sloane shook her head. I told myself it wasn't my problem, that what he did to other women wasn't my responsibility. It wasn't, not really. It felt like it was. It feels like it still is. Sloane met Charlotte's eyes. I'm starting a foundation for domestic violence survivors, using my share of the Aldridge money. I want to turn something toxic into something healing. Charlotte felt tears threaten. That's beautiful. Will you help me? Advise me? I don't know what I'm doing, but I know you do. Charlotte thought about the strange paths life took, the unexpected alliances, the healing that could come from the most unlikely places. Yes, she said, I'll help you. The foundation launched the following year, the Aldridge Weston Foundation for Domestic Violence Prevention, an unlikely partnership that made headlines. Charlotte and Sloane worked side by side, building something meaningful, transforming family pain into public purpose. The foundation funded shelters, trained counselors, supported legislation, helped thousands of women find their way to safety. It couldn't undo the past, couldn't erase the harm Preston had caused, but it could prevent future harm, could save future lives. That was enough. That was everything. Hope grew into a remarkable child, strong and compassionate and absolutely certain of her place in the world. She knew her story. Charlotte had told her the age-appropriate version, would tell her more as she got older. You were born from courage, Charlotte told her, from strength, from love. What about my father? The question came when Hope was 7, inevitable and necessary. Charlotte had prepared for this moment, had rehearsed the words, but nothing prepared her for the reality. Your father made bad choices. He hurt people, including me. He's in prison now because of what he did. Hope processed this. Will I ever meet him? That's your choice when you're older, when you're ready, if you ever want to. Do you hate him? Charlotte thought carefully before answering. No, I don't hate him. Hating him would mean he still has power over me, and he doesn't. Not anymore. She paused. What happened to me was terrible, but it led to you, and you are the best thing that ever happened to me. Hope hugged her, tight and trusting and full of love. I love you, Mama. I love you too, baby girl, more than anything. 10 years after the trial, Charlotte stood in her garden. The roses were everywhere now, a beautiful chaos of color and fragrance. Her mother's roses, her own roses, Hope's roses planted on her 5th birthday. 3 generations of women, growing together. Hope was running through the garden, 10 years old and full of energy, chasing butterflies she would never catch. Raymond sat on the bench, 80 years old now, slower but still present, still watching over his girls. Charlotte walked among the roses, touching the petals, breathing the fragrance. She thought about the woman she had been, 20 years old and falling in love with the wrong man. She thought about the woman she had become, 42 and healing, growing, thriving. The journey between those 2 women had been brutal. Dark nights and desperate moments in a darkness she had nearly not survived. But she had survived. She had more than survived. She had transformed. That evening, after Hope was asleep, Charlotte sat at her desk. She was writing again. A new book, different from the first. This one was about healing, about the long road back from trauma, about finding peace in unexpected places. She wrote about therapy and patience and grace, about the support of family and friends, about the slow, steady work of rebuilding a self. She wrote about hope, about the terror of watching a child grow, about the healing power of unconditional love. She wrote about forgiveness, not for Preston, but for herself, for all the choices she wished she had made differently, for the years she had lost. Forgiving herself had been the hardest part, but also the most important. The final chapter of the book was a letter to her younger self, to the woman who had stood at the altar in a white dress, who had believed in fairy tales, who had thought love was supposed to hurt. Dear Charlotte, I know you can't hear me. I know you have to walk this road yourself, make your own mistakes, learn your own lessons. But if I could tell you one thing, it would be this. You are not broken. You are not worthless. You are not the things he tells you. You are strong, even when you feel weak. You are brave, even when you are terrified. You are valuable, even when he makes you feel small. One day, you will find your way out. You will rebuild your life from the ashes. You will raise a daughter who knows her worth. One day, you will sit in a garden surrounded by roses. You will watch that daughter grow. You will feel peace in your bones. The road to get there is hard, harder than anything you've faced, but you will walk it step by step, day by day, and on the other side, you will find something you've forgotten existed, yourself. With love, Charlotte, she finished writing, set down her pen, looked out the window at the garden. The moon was full, silver light spilling over the roses. Everything quiet, everything still. Charlotte felt peace settle over her, deep and true and hard-won. She had survived, she had healed, she had built a life worth living, and tomorrow she would do it all again. That was what strength looked like. That was what hope meant. The sun rose over the garden the next morning, pink and golden, full of promise. Hope ran outside before breakfast, chasing butterflies, laughing at the world. Raymond arrived with pastries from the bakery. His shoes matched today. Progress. Della had coffee ready, strong and perfect, the constant rhythm of their days. Charlotte stood at the kitchen window, watching her family, feeling grateful for every ordinary moment. This is what I fought for, she thought one final time. This life, this love, this peace, she had found it, against all odds. Through all the darkness, she had found it, and she would never let it go. And so Charlotte Weston found her peace, not in revenge, not in bitterness, but in the quiet strength of a woman who refused to be broken. She turned her darkest chapter into a beacon of hope for thousands of others. Proof that no matter how trapped you feel, there is always a way out. If this story touched your heart today, I have a small favor to ask. Hit that subscribe button and join our community of over 1 million listeners who believe in the power of stories that matter. Tap the like button if Charlotte's journey inspired you. Your single tap tells us to keep creating stories like this one. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message today, someone who might be fighting their own invisible battle, share this story with them. You never know whose life you might change with one simple click. Drop a comment below and tell me, what moment hit you the hardest? Was it when Raymond saw the footage? When Charlotte finally faced Preston in that courtroom? Or when little Hope took her first steps in that sun-filled garden? I read every single comment. Your words fuel these stories. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next upload. Because next week we have another incredible story that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Thank you for staying until the very end. That means the world to me. Remember, you are stronger than you know, you are braver than you feel, and your story is not over yet. Until next time, take care of yourselves and take care of each other.